This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 2nd of May, 2019, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed it, this is Winning Headlines. Let's take a look at today's headlines. The Star, Rotich, 61% of your taxes to pay debt.
Wow.
The Standard, how counties will split 370 billion shillings.
Yes.
And Daily Nation, rise and fall of KIDERO.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's start with KIDERO.
Let's begin with the nation.
I like the headline.
Yes,
Short
I
and
do.
sweet,
It
really
is.
effective, good picture.
Better than yesterday's picture. He looked sad.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't like the headline because I don't think it's a fall for KIDERO. I
Why
actually
not?
think
It's the rise and rise.
rise and rise. And the thing is this,
Okay.
right? KIDERO has now street credibility. Fantastic.
Infamy brings you street credibility.
Yes, all right? And bad news is also good news. You see, Uhuru and Ruto were accused of worse crimes, far worse crimes than what KIDERO has been. In fact, they were dragged to international courts. KIDERO has just gone to a funny court. Let me not call it funny, but it's just gone to a court here.
Please give the court the respect that it is due as two representatives
This
and
is-
officers of the court.
It's a political
beside
thing.
you. Yeah.
It's a political thing. And I think it is such a profitable opportunity for Evans KIDERO to inherit RAILA Odinga. If
Wow.
yeah,
Just put it out there.
and someone is targeting him, and I'm sure he knows who's targeting him.
So are you saying
yeah.
that the rise and fall of KIDERO, this succinct, very well written
Yeah.
headline, one,
Yes.
is a bot headline,
Yeah.
and two,
Yeah.
you subscribe to Rumsfeld's thinking that all media, good or bad,
Yeah.
is good. All media is good media because in the end your name is out there. If they're not
Yeah.
talking about you, then you're not worth being.
Talked about.
Let me answer you this way. Did Raila Odinga ever go to prison?
Oh yes.
For what?
What's your point?
For treason.
Yes, I didn't want to
okay,
say that
for
out loud.
Now, this man is being accused for stealing some money. He'll get away with it.
All
It's
right.
all right. Street credibility.
I'm not married to the story. I think it's a good headline.
I say
but-
before you toss it, I'm just going to say two things.
Yeah.
I don't think that the question here is if KIDERO does have this money, what does he do with it? If you have a potential kingmaker
Yeah.
and a king in waiting,
with deep pockets.
I don't know what could happen.
Yeah.
But before you toss it, we have a three-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines for you. We ask ourselves three questions. And
Yeah.
with this headline, we're going to ask ourselves those three questions.
All right.
Is this headline topical or is it speculative? Is it groundbreaking or is it repetitive? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy?
It is repetitive. We saw it on
Yeah,
Monday
this has
and
been going on
Tuesday.
since last
and,
week.
and we saw it with the Star.
Toss
And now
it
we are
then.
seeing it in the Nation. This headline has an owner.
All right.
How counties will split 370 billion shillings. And then Rotich, on the other hand, tells us that 61% of our taxes are to pay our debts.
I think these two headlines go hand in hand.
Yep.
I think we should look at them concurrently.
Let's
Yeah,
join them.
they knock on the door of Treasury.
Yes.
Let's enter.
Let's join them together. And I'm going to say this, and I've said it again. We as Africans have been cheated for a long time. That all we need is representation and what else? And inclusion, so that we can get rich and prosper. And I think we're also very thick for getting these solutions from the global north.
All
Wow.
right.
Look, we have a budget, or next year's financial year budget, 2.7 trillion shillings. We collect about 1.5 trillion shillings every single year.
Yeah.
We are going to pay 1.1 trillion shillings for loans. In the
So are you
next,
telling me that
Yeah.
by the time we start off,
Yeah.
a good chunk of
Yes.
the money that we collected
Yes.
Has gone to
has
servicing
gone
debt.
Has just gone to
servicing
service
our
debt. And guys, I've always told you this. We need to reduce the size of government.
Okay, but wait. So now we have serviced our debts.
Yes.
What are we left with?
400 billion.
Okay, let's put it this way.
Okay.
2.7.
Yes.
You service your debt.
1.1.
You left with 1.6.
Okay.
So you have paid 1.1 to China and those other guys. So you left with 1.6. 1.6 you put
1.6 is from the budget,
yes,
by the way, not
yes.
from the money in the bank.
Yeah, no, but now I'm now, see now 1.6, you have already collected 1.5, remember. 1.1 is now your deficit.
And we're left with 400 billion.
You're left with about 400 billion. What will 400 billion do?
Well, the headline is telling us that 370 of that 400 billion is going to counties.
Now, let me
what are we left with then?
Let me put it this way. Let me put it just in context. If 370 billion is going to counties, 360 billion is going to pay the interest in loans. All right? We are equal now. All right?
So what you're paying counties is what you're servicing your debt. I don't think I like this. 2.7 trillion budget, 1.5 trillion what we collect, 1.1 trillion debt.
If you're going to have a discussion in this country about a referendum, it should be to reduce the size of government. We cannot be this thick.
Okay, so I just want to take a pause right now, only because I think we ran through the numbers very quickly, and I want our audiences at home to understand very clearly what we are saying. We're going to have a whiteboard up on the TV screen so that you go through this with us. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
The 1.5 trillion is going to be collected by the government, right, in taxes.
Yeah.
Immediately, 1.1 of that 1.1 trillion is going to be taken to service our debts.
So you have
we are therefore left with 400 billion.
Yes.
The standard here is telling us that 370 of that 400 billion remaining has to go to counties. What are we left with?
30
billion.
30.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that 30 billion goes to recurrent expenditure, which is wages, what else, development, so on and so forth. And as we know, the wage bill in this country is 650 billion shillings.
Yes.
So we're already at a deficit.
We're at a deficit.
Whichever way we look at it,
Now
we
that
are down.
that 30 billion that is left is only able to pay 4% of that wage bill, of that 650 billion. While we're talking about a budget of 2.7 trillion.
I think we can agree that the government is using household economics to run a national economy.
So
can we toss these headlines?
Both headlines?
Okay, I think we can keep Rotiches.
Let's keep Rotiches.
61% of our taxes is to pay debt.
Yeah.
It's full of numbers. I do say that the story is good. The story the content is really good.
There.
And it does show you exactly where your money is going, who you're servicing.
Yeah.
So I think I like the story. The headline, not so much.
I think it's a factual headline. It is telling us the truth. I don't think it's speculative, because when we just look at the numbers very plainly, we do see that 61% is actually going to pay for taxes. I'm sorry, to pay for debts. So I think it's a good headline. It is lifting the veil of ignorance. It is telling the public the reality of this hot water that we're in. Okay then. The Star gives us a winning headline.
Yeah.
And on to our next segment, the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. And just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break them down for you. We ask ourselves, is the cartoon humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or is it pessimistic? And finally, is it effective or just plain lazy?
Right. Wow.
Gado, the standard.
What do we have here? We have a cartoon of a man who looks Caucasian, and he's holding
a ponytail
and a ponytail, and he's huge. Yeah? He's wearing suspenders, and he's wearing a briefcase. He's carrying a briefcase written Tallow Oil, Tallow, A-L-O, T-A-L-O, right? And he's telling the people of Turkana, now we need to extract water from the ground, then inject that water into the ground to extract oil. And the community here seems so puzzled because
actually quite angry.
Quite angry, yeah.
That puzzling is not the case. They're unimpressed. Even the kid is unimpressed.
And you see, they have come here with a bucket.
Yeah.
Now the water they're expecting to get is now going to help extraction of oil.
Of that oil.
Happen.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out the difference in the two halves of this cartoon.
Yes.
One half shows Talo's rig, if I can call it that, behind our ponytailed man, and there you can see electricity, you can see them drilling, you can see a lot of happening.
It's a developed zone.
It's a developed zone. Yet on this other side, there's literally nothing. There's nothing, and this guy's just
and I think the sadness of this is that it's in light of the drought, it's in light of the famine, the deaths that have been happening in Turkana.
Absolutely.
But also it's the incredulity of that statement that you guys don't have water, but we're going to take the water that you have from the ground that you have it, and then put it back in the ground to take out the oil.
Yes.
Because it shows a fact. You need, for every 1 barrel of oil that you take out of the ground, you need 4 barrels of water.
Absolutely.
In a situation of scarcity.
Yes.
It's a pessimistic cartoon, but I think it's also it's a reality. It's a hard.
It's a reality of things. Can you imagine you have about 70 trillion cubic meters of water underneath the earth, and people are dying of being thirsty, of thirst.
And you want to use that water not to grow or farm, but waste it, quote unquote.
It's crazy.
What do we think? I think we toss it. I think it's a bit too pessimistic for me.
Toss it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see the Baby Nation.
What do we have here? Oh man, Dula today I think is
Dula, the first rule of puns is do not say that it is a pun. Okay, you kill it. You just
Dula, let's first give context.
Okay.
Right? Here you have what would be the military council, the head of the military council, because al-Bashir was deposed, someone else is in charge, and this man is plugged to a socket. He has two plugs, but the plug has
one that's plugged in
is labeled military, and the switch has been put on. The plug that is outside is civilian rule, and is out there saying Sudan's Joint Military Civilian Transitional Council. Now,
pun intended.
Pun intended. There's no need to say it.
No, you ruined it.
I actually think that this cartoon would have been so much better if you just taken out that entire sentence and just left it as it was. Just leave a picture of the entwined cables with military rule and civilian rule. I would have liked that cartoon far better.
Because the pun here is supposed to be that the military and civilian, that's one and the same.
He says the power is only being enjoyed by the military. That's why the switch is on. Power.
I get it. I like it.
Yeah, so
I think he ruined it with that caption, most definitely.
You toss it.
And finally,
the star.
I like the cartoon here.
I think this is a fantastic cartoon.
I think it's funny, I do agree, but I also
disagree with it somehow.
Yes.
Let me explain it before we criticize, we critique it. It's a caricature of a cow labeled Safaricom.
Nice, a fat cow.
Fat cow. It's so fat and its udders are full of milk.
Who's behind the cow?
Who's behind the cow is Bob Collymore, current CEO.
Green shirt.
Right?
Okay, then what you
and
can
then
see.
you see someone with a poster of a CS, I know, but I won't say, written GOK, right? And he's carrying many milk buckets.
Do you see how he's running?
And he's pacing to this cow, and the cow is looking perplexed. And
Bob Collymore was also looking perplexed.
It's Kenya's stunt lead, and this has to do with I think Bob Collymore is stepping down, and the GOK, the government of Kenya, would like a Kenyan CEO to take over the helms
of Safaricom.
And I agree with them. And the reason I agree with them is this: market capitalization for Safaricom is about $12 billion. That's more than the GDP of our East African neighbors. Not all of them put together, but some of them. Now, and Safaricom is the most profitable subsidiary of Vodafone. If you're Vodafone UK, if you're getting that amount of profile from Kenya, you might as well be led by a Kenyan.
Okay, let me ask you guys this question. Is this image of GOK like, running like this, like a round boy with buckets ready to collect milk? Is this false?
No.
Is this fact or fiction?
This is what Kenyans are thinking. Kenyans are thinking that because Safaricom is such a cash cow, government wants its hand.
Of course, the moment they get a Kenyan.
And that is such Kenyan, you're shaming your own.
And that's the thing.
Kenyans are the helm of big corporate institutions, not just in Kenya, but across the world.
I do agree, but also another thing we don't see is that behind Bob Collymore, we don't know what's there. We can't even see the whole of him. He could have many buckets there.
And I will admit, Safaricom is a very secretive company.
Yes.
We do not know what goes on behind closed doors.
But we do know one thing for sure. This cash cow is fat because of all the money that I have spent on it. They should have had a Kenyan strung at the top there.
Okay. This cow, are you seeing the udders on the ground? Normally the udders hang.
Okay, do we think that this cartoon...
but I do think this cartoon is humorous.
I think it is
effective. It is satirical. Yeah?
I think we have a winning cartoon today.
Yeah.
In a shocking turn of events, the star gives us both.
Oh, wow.
And what is our final thought?
Final thought. And I always have one, eh?
Yes.
And now our final thought. It is inspired by a book entitled The Bad Samaritans by Ha Jung Chang, right? And very soon we will be airing a program called The Bad Samaritans.
That's very true.
Stay tuned. Where's my book? I need to read something from it. And the caption here, it reads, "The guilty secrets of rich nations and the threat to global prosperity." June, you want to lead us into that?
Yeah, sure. So The book discusses, or rather Chan, the author, addresses the notion that unfettered capitalism, so that's free, complete, unbeholden capitalism, and wide open international trade can lift struggling nations out of poverty.
Okay.
So another book that he wrote is called Kicking Away the Ladder. So the idea behind this book is that the tools that the Western world used to become the prosperous nations we now know them to be are the tools that they suggest that the developing world should not use. They subscribed to protectionism. They were not democratic nations. They did not have free and open trade. And yet, what do they tell us to do? All those opposite things. So the idea is that they climbed to the top of the ladder, where they stand now looking down at us, and then they
acquired morals.
They acquired morals, and then they kicked down that ladder so as we were not able to climb up that same ladder. There are double standards that exist. And that is why he calls them bad Samaritans. They think and they try to be well-intentioned, but they end up hurting us more.
And I do want to mention one country that I think changed that narrative. And I want to mention China, and I'll mention another book this time by a guy called Yu Wen. Yu Wen is the Assistant Vice President and an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank. And he wrote a book called The Making of an Economic Superpower, Unlocking China's Secret of Rapid Industrialization. And here he said that China uncovered that secret that the superpowers kept to themselves, about how you can industrialize, the secret recipe of the Industrial Revolution. And what he says is that they had 4 things that they did that compressed their phases of revolution from 200 years to just 35 years. And those 4 things are, 1, maintain political stability at all costs. If that includes being dictatorial, just throw democracy is not out necessarily
the way.
Number 2, he says, focus on the grassroots, bottom-up reforms starting in agriculture instead of the financial sector. Number 3, that's protectionist now, his third point. He says, promote rural industries despite their primitive technology. And number 4, use manufactured goods. So instead of only natural resources, to exchange for machinery. So we shouldn't be exporting tea in its 3 buds, 2 leaves and a bud, but we should be taking out tea that's already processed, value added to it, that gives us more money. Then we use that to get machinery.
And it is indeed a secret recipe. Because, Chang in his book, he says that those things, the West did those things shamelessly back when they were, beginning to rise. And now we're not allowed to do that. You have the IMF, and he actually calls those the bad Samaritans. The IMF, the World Bank, the United Nations, the 3 of them, they're the bad Samaritans.
The people who
Bretton Woods institutions.
Visions.
Exactly.
Guys, the reason why we chose this book, in my view, and I said it, and I'll go back to what I said on Tuesday. I said we have poverty of thought in this country, right? And the reason I'm saying this, and we don't have to follow the South Asian tigers. We don't have to follow the Asian tigers in their manufacturing and whatever. We do have low-hanging fruits in Kenya, all right? And I'll give you guys an example. Australia, the city of Melbourne. City of Melbourne, the largest sectors, education and tourism. You know why they are big? It's because they have such a large immigrant population, all right? Now, in Australia, they put pictures on their prospectus of universities, black people, Sudanese and Asians.
Trying to get us to go there.
Yes, but there's a reason why they do that. They package their things so well that they attract the world there. I don't see a reason why education cannot be packaged this way, right? We spend about 300 billion shillings on just education. Why shouldn't we attract the world to Nairobi? And even just Africa, even just the region. We have tourism, we have banking and finance, we have human resource, all right? The reason why people go to Dubai today is not because Dubai manufactures goods, all right? Dubai attracts goods, imported goods, and they resell those goods to the world. Why can't we have incentives here? Let's remove VAT and all manner of things. Here's the thing. Bad Samaritans was at the case of the South Asian tigers. All right,
I do
we
say
can have our own story here.
Yes, and I do agree, because you see the thing that would make us the same as the Asian tigers is that we have to develop homegrown solutions.
Absolutely.
What they did, like what South Korea did, what China did, is that they became protectionists. They made up their own models and used those models to grow their internal economy.
It's about having a vision, and unfortunately in this country, I beg to say that we do not have an economic blueprint.
Yeah, we have a social engineering.
We have a social brochure. I mean, the Big Four. And
are you calling the Big Four? Oh, wait for it. Vision 2030. The social engineering blueprint.
It has not reached the point of being a blueprint. A blueprint is a guide. An architect has a blueprint to tell him this is where we want to go. As a country, we have not arrived at that point where we're being led with a
so
why.
We have a brochure. It's pitching the future. It's a sales pitch.
Let me say this. I don't want to personally criticize Vision 2030. I think Kibaki knew where we are going. However,
it's almost over.
We only have 10 years to go to Vision 2030. What do we have beyond Vision 2030? All right?
The Big Four?
We need a 2080, a 2100. We need, well, that would be a 2100. We need an economic blueprint that is going to take us to further places than where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, but look.
But then also, let's be honest. Is it realistic for us to say that we can do a China, that we can take ourselves and turn it around in 35 years? Can we shorten the industrial revolution? In the case of Kenya, if we have a strong man with a good economic blueprint, can we become protectionist, we say goodbye bad Samaritans, we become protectionist, and we start protecting our homegrown institutions, no matter how rudimentary they are.
My biggest issue with UN and what he writes is that he very playfully uses numbers to his benefit. China did not industrialize in 35 years. They industrialized in 135 years. Well, the first 100 years were unsuccessful. The 35 years were successful. So it is incorrect for him to use those numbers to say in 35 years you can do it too.
What he does say, and but he's not untruthful in his commentary, he does say that there were 3 failed attempts at industrialization. Beginning in the 1900s. He does. He says in 1860 they tried to revolutionize after the loss to the British in the Second Opium War. He says that again in 1911 they tried it again with the, do they call it Qinghai revolution? And again in 1949 under communism they again tried to industrialize. But what they got right in the last 35 years were those 4 points.
I'm not discounting their success. My point is that we should be aware that failures are going to happen, and that's going to be part of our blueprint.
And failure is allowable. That's how you're able to revolutionize.
Let me answer your question.
Okay.
We cannot be like China. China has had, and I said this, they have advanced their skills over time. We cannot compete with them on production capacity. However, we have a niche that we can take advantage of. You see, when Mauritius and Zanzibar are taking our products, right, or copying our products, and they are producing much better tourism products than Kenya, they have realized they do have a niche. Tanzania is not going to run and start doing manufacturing, right? We have a banking niche in this region. We have an agricultural niche in this region. We have a human resource niche in this region. Why can't we just take advantage of the low-hanging fruit and build on that? We can create a Kenyan lion, not a tiger, because we don't have them. But we can be the lions of Africa.
Okay, what I do agree with you is that what we do need is to come up with our own homegrown solutions.
Yes.
This is Winning Headlines from The Star. We have our winning headline and our winning cartoon. If you do like the segment that we do, The Final Thought, kindly send us your clever, alternative and Afrocentric books for us to read and review. Go to our Twitter page at 5th Estate KE and leave us a comment. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.